Welcome to this session from SmartTots. It's on neurocognitive changes associated with exposure to anesthesia in infants and children, the present and future. So we had a robust dialogue yesterday in the afternoon when the investigators group met, and I would hope that this will also entail a lot of dialogue after this. My name is Suresh. I'm on the Board of Trustees of the IARS, and I have the unique pleasure of moderating this session. I have no disclosures except for the fact that I am co-chair of the SmartTots and on the Board of Trustees. So I just want to give an overview of the SmartTots program. I see a lot of you have been very much involved with SmartTots, but for those of you who do not know this, it's a public-private partnership between the IARS and the FDA, formed in 2010 to investigate the effects of anesthetics and sedatives on the human brain and to ensure that information and outcomes generated from this research can be used for public health. So our mission was to offer a broad scientific expertise, guide the scientific direction, raise funds for research studies, and try to then disseminate the research findings. So there was a steering committee that was formed with the FDA representatives and the IRS representatives, and I have to thank Tricia Brazil from the IRS, who keeps us on our toes, and Tom Cooper for putting this group together. So we have monthly meetings, and the idea here is for us to see how we can advance this with the feedback that we get from all of you. So just to give you the milestones, in 2009, the FDA and the IRS developed the SmartTots operating agreement, and November 4th, we had a first workshop that many of you attended. It was an overview of the problem and the goals of this public-private partnership. In March 2010, the FDA and the IRS signed a letter of intent for SmartTots PPP, and in October 2010, we formed a scientific advisory board. In 2012, we had the first SmartTots research grants awarded, and I'll go through what were awarded. In September 2012, we had a SmartTots workshop. This was actually sponsored by the FDA at the FDA headquarters in Silver Springs, Maryland, and at that time we came up with a consensus statement based on the current research that was available at that time. So 2012, this was issued via the American Academy of Pediatrics. We had a fair amount of buy-in from all of the groups, including the American College of Surgeons, American Academy of Pediatrics, Society for Pediatric Anesthesia, as well as the American Society of Anesthesia. In July 2013, a second group of SmartTots research grants were awarded, and in 2014, and we met again. This was a third SmartTots workshop, and again, we had a research study protocol. There were two parts to this group. One was focused on the study protocols and what we needed to develop, and the second group actually met at the same meeting. We had two parts of the meeting, and the other group was actually looking at the messaging and how we wanted to get the messaging. So we did have a draft of a consensus statement, which was then circulated to the stakeholder groups. Just to give you a sense of what the IRS has done, as well as what the FDA has done, the IRS has contributed about $500,000, and trustees have all contributed individually, and I would say across the board, all of the trustees have contributed to this. The IRS selected for its SmartTots related non-human primate study the Frontiers Award in 2012, and I think we have Ansgar Brambik here, who received the $750,000 award. Mike and Nancy Roizen pledged $1 million over 10 years. So this is still in effect. So every time you give any sort of money to SmartTots, we are still getting the matching funds from Mike and his wife. The Society for Pediatric Anesthesia has contributed some money, Wisconsin Society. The Japanese Society of Clinical Anesthesia has contributed $20,000, and they've actually given us yet another $20,000 this year towards this mission. So I want to thank Makoto for the kind contribution from the Japanese Society. And what we have done is we have actually solicited some funding from individuals, and we have raised about another $150,000, and it has been donated by most of you in this audience and outside of here. So just to give you a summary of the SmartTots research grant recipients, we have Robert, in 2012, we had 2 grants of $100,000, one to the University of Iowa to Robert Block, and the other to Caleb Ng from Columbia University. In 2013, we decided as a board of trustees that this wasn't enough money. We actually doubled this amount, and we have actually given a $200,000 grant to Jeff Saul from the University of California, San Francisco, and to Lena Sun from Columbia University. So the most important thing we felt at this point was we needed to define the needed studies. So the steering committee then appointed a task force with Emery Brown, Alex Evers, and Bev Orser, with an expert panel led by Andrew Davidson to give us feedback on clinical studies. We do have members of the FDA also involved in the steering committee task force, and we have been able to not quite come to a consensus on what studies need to be done, and I guess that is what we're going to be discussing in the next hour or so. So the key thing was the consensus statement was developed and was released in 2015, and this is now available on the website, on the IARS website, and again, has been endorsed by multiple organizations, including the American Society of Anesthesia, AAP, American College of Surgeons, etc. And I will not bore you with reading all of this. It is available for all of you to look at, but you can see the variety of organizations that have been involved in endorsing this worldwide. So at this point, I'd like to invite Bev Orser. Bev Orser is a fellow of the Canadian Academy of Health Sciences. She's the research chair in anesthesia and a professor of anesthesia and physiology at the University of Toronto in Canada. Bev has been instrumental in gathering all of the researchers together, and I'd like to invite her to give us a summary of what we know from preclinical studies. Thank you.